You know, and the funny thing is that Baal mimics everything that God is doing. So for example, one of the things about Baal's worship is cultic meals. Write them down. In the worship of Baal, they always shared food. Isn't it funny how in Christ, in us, there is food? And even when God gave them his instructions, come to the temple, worship, to bring your sin offering, bring your this offering, bring your that offering. Cultic meals, meals, the sharing of food. And you know, he will say when you bring it, they drain the blood, they boil it, the priest takes a portion, the people take a portion, they eat. Even in the liberation from Egypt, it was a meal that they used to signify it. You take it, you share it with your neighbor, you share with your neighbor, you know, you people eat and eat the Passover meal in readiness. When Jesus was about to die, Jesus, what did he do? Sorry, hold on. Hey guys, what did Jesus do? I'll be with you soon. I'm still in class. Come and say hello. Say hello. Yes, that's yourself. All right, go. I'll come.
Guys, so nice to see you. Hi, Judah. Hi, Nathan. Hello.
Okay. Okay, bye-bye. Go back. I'm coming. Just give me. No, don't stay here. I love you, but don't stay here. Mommy is working. I'll see you soon, okay? 10 minutes. Bye. All right. Thank you. No. So cultic meals, and so they shared food. They shared food amongst themselves, and they ate these meals as part of the worship of their God. And you see how Jesus was speaking about the communion, and I have teachings on the communion. Maybe Pastor Stephanie can look for it on Prayer Ring. And I've taught about the communion, and I've taught about the vision I had of Jesus, where he came to me once and he said to me, Isi, he told I was going to eat from a table, and he told me, don't eat from that table. And that table had more food. That table had all kinds of things. And I was like, Jesus, I really want to eat it. And he was like, no, don't eat it. And you know, he took me out of there and he took me to another room. And as we entered this other room, it seemed like we had left 2018 and we had entered into like maybe 18 or 17 or 15 or something, like the time of Christ. And his own table was made of old wood. And you know, it was funny. It just had grapes. It had dry unleavened bread. It had wine. It had all of these things, but not as, you know, beautiful as my current table. And he took the bread and he took the wine and he said to me, Issy, the confluence of food and prayer is the place of covenant where intimate relationships are birthed. And I said, sorry, say that again. He said the confluence of food and prayer is the place of covenant where intimate relationships are born. So, and I woke up and I understood it. And Jesus was trying to explain to me the spirituality of food. And how, if you look at from the beginning of the world, food was where the fall of man started from. So she saw the food, the fruits, that it was good for food. So it is almost like there's a correlation between food and life, or food and death. And when Jesus was about to die, what did he do? He broke bread with his saints before he died. When Esau sold his birthright to his brother, how did he do it? He did it by taking food and giving up his birthright. There are so many times in scriptures that food would have been the fall of man. And so when you look at Jesus, what was the temptation of Christ? The first temptation was turn the stones into bread. And so it is almost as though food in itself is a symbol of giving life to your humanity. But you have to superimpose it with the life of God and then make it a spiritual symbol of life and infilling and satisfaction and empowerment to the human being. So it says the confluence of food and prayer. So when you merge the food with prayer, it says it is a form of covenant. So you then realize why, even when God is making covenant with men, and when people, even in Africa traditional religion, they go to different occultic places, if they kill an animal or use it to do a sacrifice, after they've done the sacrifice, they give the people to eat. So because you are what you eat. So the moment you eat of it, you partake of the life of it. So the animal that is sacrificed to a god, you eat that animal, you partake of the life of the god that the animal is consecrated and dedicated to. So you need to understand the spirituality of food. That's why the Bible warns us about eating foods that are sacrificed to idols. Because what you eat is what you are. But the food, the life of the food is dependent on the God that the food is consecrated to. I hope we're still together. Now, so in the worship of Baal, there was occultic meals. And you notice that in the worship of Christ, there is the meal of the communion. And Jesus gave them this meal before he left. When they were breaking out of Egypt, as the angel of death was going through the town, killing people, what were the children of Jesus, of God, doing? They were eating of the Passover meal. Who is the Passover meal? Jesus. He is the bread, the unleavened bread. He is the wine that they drink, Christ. Now, so what does this look like today? You wonder why there's this whole big thing about weight loss, weight gain, obesity, food. Food consecrated to idols today does not look like, oh, we burnt incense over it, come and eat. What does it look like? It looks like the bread of McDonald's that you leave open and flies don't perch it. And it's just there. You can keep it on your, when I travel to America, I'm amazed. I will keep a fruit on my table for 3 weeks. And I'm like, what is this? Why is it not getting spoiled? What is in these things? In Africa, you cannot leave banana out for 2 days, 3 days. It has spoiled. But in America, you can leave your banana for how many days? Now, please, America, I'm sure you're thinking, Pierre, what is it? What have we done to you? Look, I love you guys. And that's why I'm preaching the truth of the gospel. So occultic meals today look like foods that have been programmed to bring death, that have been programmed to kill the human system, because that was what food dedicated to idols did. It made them participate in the life of that deity, but the life of that deity is death. So today, how does it manifest itself? It manifests itself with selling things, spraying fruits with pesticides. Pesticides, and you know that no matter how much they wash these fruits, that they can never wash these pesticides out of it. So the people are eating it and dying. Yesterday I was talking to you about blood sacrifices and how part of this worship they require blood. We'll get there. But look at you think the killings in America is for nothing? You think the reason why they are refusing to ban gun laws is for nothing? There's a dedication to a God going on there. The land needs blood. The altar is crying out for blood. For it to be able to manifest, that entity to manifest itself, it needs blood to be shed. Why do you think that the hand of that king was moved to kill all the children from the ages of age 1 to 3 or 1 to 4 when Jesus was born? They were offering up a blood sacrifice in the land to stop the manifestation of Christ. Because the life of a thing is in the blood. And if you release enough life over a land, the blood begins to cry out in the land. So it begins to cry out vengeance. It begins to cry out death. So they said to him that a king is born. So you know that this king, he said, we saw his star and we began to travel 2 years coming. So the king knew that this king that is born is no ordinary king. The shepherds had a testimony of angels singing in the heavens that a king had been born. The shepherds saw the angels. Now, you think that king ordering for all the children to be killed was just him killing the children? Of course, there was some huge occultic act behind it. Because in the spilling of the blood of the innocents, what he was trying to do was to shut the gates, because he thought that the kingship of Jesus was coming for his throne. So he was trying to shut the gates to this glorious king by releasing blood over the land. Remember that king, when he saw that Israel was winning him, he went and he slaughtered his first son at the gates of his kingdom. And the war turned on Israel. This king was trying to do the same thing. Why do you think that when Moses was to be born, there was killing all over the land? Blood. Blood. When people die like that, it is serving demonic satanic altars and empowering their reign and rule over lands and cities. So occultic meals was one of that. Blood sacrifices is also another thing from the worship of Baal. Yes, abortions is part of blood sacrifices. So, but they have to find a way to legalize it, because the presidents cannot come out and wear their satanic robes and conduct those sacrifices publicly. So rather, these robes that they wear now and their priestly garments are the garments of presidential offices, the garment of policy making, the garments of CEOs. These are the garments that they now wear. These are now their satanic priestly robes that they wear. Another thing that was another symbol of Baal worship was that they had what they called sacred pillars. Baal was often worshipped using sacred pillars or standing stones. If you notice, like in 1 Kings 16, 31 to 32, Ahab set up pillars to Baal in the city of Samaria. So he set up landmarks all over the city. In 1 Kings 16, 31 to 32, and it came to pass, please, if you're here and you're tired, you can go, but I feel a great need to finish what I'm teaching. So is it okay for me to finish? I'm just going to finish, guys. Is it okay? And I will do my best to speed up, but I feel the need for us to finish this thing. So in 1 Kings 16, 31 to 32, it says that, and it came to pass, as though it had been a trivial thing for him to walk into the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebaioth, and he took a wife, Jezebel, the daughter of Ethbaal, king of Sidonians. So Jezebel's father was a king, but he was also a priest of Baal. He says he went and served Baal and worshipped him. Then he set up an altar for Baal in the temple of Baal, and he had built in Samaria. So part of the things about Baal is that they had what they call sacred pillars. They had stones. They had, so things like stones, they called them, sacred. And, there were ornaments that they put in houses, they put in places. If you're on this call and you have, what do they call it? Something crystals. All those crystals and all these ornaments and things from earth that they are saying, oh, this one carries the power to this. This one carries this one. Go and throw them away. They are gates. It is part of Baal's worship to use, yes, energy crystals, to use physical earthly things as markers of powers to their God and worship to their God. And many times they even set up like statues. So somebody was showing something on Instagram recently where I can't remember which city, and he was showing us like I think 12 pillars that was erected in one city in America. And the 12 pillars, they had all kinds of writings, dark writings and all kinds of, so they said, oh, it was a representation of slave trade and blah, blah, blah. And he was showing us, he was like, no, look at it. This is a portal right here that they are opening. So part of the thing about Baal is that they set up monuments, physical monuments in places. And they also had them in monuments that you could hold and handle. But, it's always what is the purpose of it? And how is it opposing God? Of course, God sets up, then he will set up his temple. But this time, that's why God says the temple is us, the church. Do you understand? We are his temple. But Satan is always trying to mimic God and always trying to set up parallel standards that are in opposition to God's standard. And what did those things do? What were the temples of old? They were places where the gods came and dwelt. So you put certain things in your house and you automatically just open the door to certain spirits. Throw them away no matter how much you bought them. Don't even give them to somebody. Throw it away. Another thing about Baal worship, funny enough, is fasting. They used to fast. The worship of Baal sometimes involved fasting as a means of gaining their God's favor. And you see it in 1 Kings 18 verse 26. The prophets of Baal fasted as they prayed to their God. You even see when Elijah was trying to destroy them. Yes, they fasted and they were crying out, oh Baal, here. He says, so they took the bull which was given them and they prepared it and called on the name of Baal from morning to noon, saying, oh Baal, hear us. But there was no voice, no one answered. Then they leapt about the altar which they had made. They leaped about the altar. So they started dance. We'll get to dance. But one other thing is that they restrict themselves from food. Now, is fasting bad? No, fasting is great. And if you even look at it, even medically, there are benefits of fasting to the human body. We all know this, intermittent fasting and all of that. But how does fasting translate into a spiritual tool in the hand of a God? Because the moment a man restricts himself from food, the man's appetite turns to something spiritual. You take your mind away from food and it turns your appetite and desire to a spiritual desire. You begin to desire a spiritual thing. So when a man is fasting, it is easier for him to hear the voice of God, to see the hand of God, to understand scriptures, because his human senses are no longer satisfied and weighed down by the weight of food. So it liberates you. Exactly. It's a surrender of your appetite, so that your appetite is now surrendered to God and he now becomes your earnest desire. So even Baal had this as a form. Now, how do you now make sure that when you fast, you're fasting unto the Lord? It's intentional. It's intentional. So let your fasting be unto the Lord. Look, even when I'm doing intermittent fasting for the sake of, I want to lose weight, I consecrate it unto Jesus. So that you are not fasting and watching what you're not supposed to watch. You are not fasting and lying. You are not fasting and using the whole time of your fast to gossip. So you are going on intermittent fast. Haven't you noticed that fashion now and the need for perfect bodies is putting the whole world on fasting? You scroll through Instagram, all kinds of apps for intermittent fasting now. So you are putting the world on a fast, but you are putting them in all kinds of idolatry, fornication, backbiting, lying, culture of stealing, culture of converting, covetousness, and all of that, but nobody is eating. So you are using their spiritual energy of fasted life to generate power around demonic sensuality. Understand where I'm coming from? So the whole world is on a fast, but their spirits are not consecrated to God. So they think they're just doing it for health reasons. But guess what? Part of the worship of Baal was go on a fast.